Thank you. Joan. I like the colors.
Excuse me, it is 6:01. I am going to call our regular meeting of the Lake Worth Beach Community Redevelopment Agency to order. We have a long evening, and so we wanted to go ahead and get started promptly. Can we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Donna Kerner,
Present.
Mr. Drew Bartlett,
Here.
Ms. Leah Hurd.
Here.
Mr. Daniel Morgan.
Here.
Ms. Caroline Shashibasha. Here. Ms. Carla Bloxson.
Here.
Ms. Ann Fairfax.
I'm here via Zoom requesting being able to attend by Zoom.
Can I have a motion to allow her to join us via Zoom?
That's true. I move that Ann Fairfax be allowed to participate by Zoom.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation under God.
And it's David Tolsis. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I apologize for not being able to be there tonight, but I'll be here. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll unmute myself.
I'm going to do something a little out of order. I'd like everyone to please stand for a moment of silence in honor of both Alan, who passed away in the last few days. I know it's very emotional for most of us, so please join me in this. Thank you. Do we have any additions, deletions, or reordering of our agenda for tonight? Thank you. We normally have public comment on non-agenda items. Please be advised that we do not have comments on presentations. So after the presentations, we will not have public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, please come up now, and we will allow you to make a public comment on the presentations. But please be advised that the presentations for WMODA, it's not complete, it's not a done deal, it's a still work in progress. So you may want to hold your comments until at least after you see the presentation. But if you feel inclined to speak, please come to the podium now.
Jenny Powell, 224 North Conway. I don't know if I have to go through that, but this is
Yes,
very
you
awesome. Oh, thank you. Jenny Powell, 224 North Conway. I understand what you're saying, Ms. Bloxson, and there was a lot of chatter on social media recently about some concerns with WMODA, and other people were saying, well, come to the meetings, come to the meetings. I could not come to the charrette. I did watch it on TV. I did participate in the Zoom meeting, and maybe I'm not familiar with what other opportunities have been available. So anyway, that's why I'm here. I just wanted to make a few comments. I realize it's not a done deal, but anyway, and I know they're presenting tonight, so that's really good. And I did look over what's on the web. Anyway, I am pleased to see that there's some affordable artist loss included That was a concern of mine from the initial Zoom meeting where they said there would not be any affordable units. Also, the stepping down on the building facade away from First Avenue south. I'd like to see, I'm not sure that that's incorporated all the way around, but you know, we've got a lot of historic homes in that area, and I think to get the buy-in from those people, that's going to be pretty critical. It does appear from the drawings that the facade is quite massive, but I realize, you know, don't have the final drawings or anything, but I just want to comment on that. Is it the way it's written now, it looks quite large. Okay, on the parking garage, the connection with the K Street garage, I'm not real clear on what that is. It sounds like that is part of the public-private partnership, that the city would be constructing that. It's a proposed garage anyway. But I just wanted to call attention to the Bohemian complex garage, that the city is on the hook for paying for that. It's very underutilized. I think there's some ways we could, the city could put together some wayfinding signs, maybe a web-based map. Because that's a big chunk of change. I found the agreement online, and over 30 years, that's like over $5 million if my calculations are correct. And that's a garage that is really not being used. And a friend of mine actually went in there to try to find parking, and there was nothing, even when she got there. So, or she had a hard time getting in. Apparently somebody who lives there actually left the gate open for her so she could get in. So anyway, I think something maybe could be done there. I know people probably think that's a little too far from downtown. It's not that far, really, but we also have the circuit ride share. I think we could hopefully maybe do something there to improve the usage, maybe some public relations or something on those lines. Let's try to maximize the use of that garage, because that seems like a hard sell when we've already got this money that we're obligated to spend over the next 30 years or more. Thank you.
Please give your name and address.
Peggy Fisher, North A Street, Lake Worth Beach. This is my feeling on WMODA. It's something that will bring a lot of people to this city and a lot of good to this city. And for those behind me, this is my feeling on WMODA. As far as the Bohemian Garage, there is no gate at the Bohemian Garage, and the first floor is always open and available for parking. So I think that is a usable space. The problem is the distance, the problem is location. We have people coming to the Playhouse, which is right in front of the K Street parking spaces, and they valet park because there's nothing right nearby. And the valets are running 2 blocks or so. So I just wanted to say, I have followed WMODA since it first came to this city months ago. And I wish more people in the city would become more involved from the beginning of a project and follow all the updates and all the events and all the information provided through the month. It's readily available. It's available by coming to meetings such as this and hearing the presentations done and hearing presentations at the commission meetings. So I think for all of us, we would all benefit from encouraging those in the community who care about what goes up or doesn't go up and care about it at the tail end rather than at the front end, that we should encourage them to learn about it from the beginning and learn about the whole process and what is being done, because then I think there would be a lot less on social media to say that it doesn't benefit the city when this is a large benefit to the city, especially coupled with the Zeiten Center, the Gulfway, and the art walks that are being proposed for the alleyways, at least two of which, and hopefully we can somehow get it to go from K to J2, which would be a big plus for the city in terms of just involving people and the beautification of our city. Thank you.
Bless you.
Do we have any additional public comments? Let's start our presentation. First presentation is the Arena Museum of Decorative Arts, W. Moda, update by Renee Miller.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members. Thank you very much for making the time once again for us to be able to speak to you this evening regarding the W. Moda Mixed Use Cultural Arts Campus. With me this evening are other members of our team. With me is David Kastner, who is the General Counsel for United Management, Nick Tangretti, who is the Development Project Manager for United Management. Also with us this evening are representatives from our architect and design firm, Ms. Anna Amari and Mr. Bob Thomas, who will be joining me this evening in the presentation. So I understand that your timing is short this evening, so we will jump right into the presentation. I want to make sure that everyone can see the screen, the presentation screen
We can say it.
adequately. Yes? Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So this evening, we're going to go over at a very high level the various elements of the project to date. We'll start with a little bit of background. We'll go into the development concept and design. We will talk at a very high level about the proposed deal structure that we're discussing at this time. We'll go over the community benefit elements of the project, the proposed high-level critical path, as well as the next steps that are before us for the development. But before we get too much into our presentation, I want to take this opportunity to just step back and give a little bit of background of how we got here this evening. In line with a lot of what we've talked about today, sometimes when these processes, in my experience, have gone on for so long and there's so many moving parts and there's so much work that goes into it, oftentimes we lose just a concept of how much time and work and discussion has gotten us to this point today. So we first started this process in February when we made our initial presentation to the CRA board, indicating our interest in partnering with the community to be able to bring the WMOTA mixed-use concept to Lake Worth Beach. Since that time, we've had 6 meetings in which the WMOTA team has formally presented information to the board and the community here in this chamber. We hosted one very well-attended community charrette in which there was over 100 residents to get feedback on our initial design and answer some questions. We also streamed that meeting live. We've had 3 separate WMOTA neighborhood outreach events since that time, and we have 4 major public hearings ahead of us in front of both the CRA board and the City Commission. So all of this, in addition to our monthly newsletters that are sent directly to the public who seek to sign up to gain more information, our dedicated website, our email address for questions, and our weekly collaborations with members of the city and the CRA staff. I show this because when we first appeared before this body 7 months ago, we said that it was our belief that this project would not work without partnership and community input. And we made a commitment to this body that would be open during this process. And we feel at this point in time that we have worked quite hard to live up to that commitment at this point. By way of background as well, it was very important for us in this process, understanding all the desires of the community, that we would need to put to paper what are the goals of each one of the parties here in order to really have a comprehensive approach to our development. So this screen just seeks to show all of the city and CRA goals that have been communicated to us, all of the goals that we have communicated since the beginning of this process in terms of making this a feasible development for WMOTA and as well as the community feedback that we have received over the last 7 months of our work to be able to incorporate into one development. And let me say, not one 20-acre tract, one compact, tight development site in a cool downtown with lots of character, where scale is something that we really had to be sensitive to. That has resulted in a very innovative concept for which we are presenting. We hope to be able to present to this body and to the City Commission. So with all of the goals that we had to achieve through this development, it soon became clear to all the parties involved that a traditional development approach would not be effective. The city and the CRA staff, from their perspective, applied a forward-thinking approach to the development, both economically and as it relates to infrastructure, in order to find ways to address future needs of the community today, while still gaining efficiencies and long-term cost savings. From the WMOTA perspective, our team approached the design like city planners, seeking to develop a campus-style project that integrated into the community, honoring its sensitivity to scale, setback, sense of place, historic preservation, economic development, downtown activation, affordable housing, and access to the arts. The result was the agreement that we will present, or the concepts that we will present before you today. And what you see here in this illustration is a plan, overarching downtown development concept that lays forth the details for the WMOTA project in particular, but also plans the future uses on partner sites in the development. This allows for responsible planning for infrastructure needs, capital investments, and solidifies our opportunities for additional affordable housing in the downtown. With the fact that we have a tight site, scale is a problem, we had to talk about the downstream impacts and really plan this out just past the footprint of our site. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our design team and Ms. Anna Amari to take you through the design concepts for the development. Anna?
Thank you, Renee. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity again to share the design of the WMOTA mixed-use development. We met with you and the community in the spring and incorporated feedback as much as possible, some of which you'll see in this presentation. We hope you'll be as excited about this project as we are. The site, as you're all well aware, just to give a sense of context before we dive in, as we know, it's about 1.7 acres located in the downtown district of Lake Worth Beach, west of the Dixie Highway. The buildings to the north of the site are commercial in scale, while to the south, primarily residential. The frontage of the site is on Lake Avenue to the north, First Avenue to the south, and flanked by South M Street and South L Street. There is an alley that runs in the east-west direction that divides the site. The project site is located in two historic districts, the Old Town District, which flanks a commercial corridor on Lake Avenue, and the historic district of Southeast Lucerne, characterized by smaller scale residential coastal cottages. The proposed design is inspired by the history of the buildings in the area, inclusive of Art Deco, Spanish, Colonial, and Mediterranean Revival. The intent is to be compatible with the historic preservation guidelines and contextual to the area, although a lot of what you will see is contemporary. The project concept is founded on driving principles for the new mixed-use development, which are first, urban connectivity to the cultural district and community, reinforcing the arts, and doing so through an architectural aesthetic which is appropriate to the area's unique history. The master plan concept is connectivity and community, creating a strong architectural presence of the new museum along Lake Avenue, with an alley equally engaging architecturally, with an equally engaging architectural presence facing the alley. This will activate the existing alley with intentional programmed area at the ground level residential to the south. This reinforces connectivity of the development as a whole, so it is integrated with the landscape of Lake Worth Beach Cultural District. The site plan is a drawing that is superimposed on an aerial. There's a lot of information here, so I'm going to break it down bit by bit. The museum is located to the north at the intersection of Lake Avenue and South M Street. To the south of it is the residential development, and between the two is the existing alley, which we are now calling the Art Walk. This art walk extends what we're defining here as the art walk extension to the west, connecting the development to the proposed K Street parking garage in the future location of which is dashed in red to the left. The project includes affordable artist lofts, which are lining South L Street to the left of the residential building. And the scope of the project entails 33,000 square feet of museum space, with parking located both on site and in the proposed K Street garage down the block. 110 unit residential building with parking structure subgrade and cellar level. The combination of dedicated spaces, street parking, and cellar parking account for sufficient parking for visitors, service providers, as well as the residents. The contributing buildings that were previously on this site will be located to First Avenue South. You see 3 of them here. The 4th structure will be located to J Street southwest of this development. Next slide, please. This is a section which runs through the residential development to the left, the museum to the right. You see Lake Avenue on the far right of the section, the Art Walk, which is the new term we're using for the existing alley between the new museum and the residential building, and First Avenue South to the left. The massing concept of the development is to start low at the south at three levels of residential, with it adding to 1 floor to 4 and finally 5 levels in line with the commercial buildings to the north of the residential building. The museum building is 4 levels, both of which are within the allowable zoning maximum height. We've indicated the bulkheads as well as the proximity to other buildings across from Lake Avenue for a sense of the surrounding scale. Both buildings have a higher first floor to accommodate the museum ground level retail and the residential artist lofts. This slide is intended to show a visual of the existing land in this quadrant of South First Avenue, South L Street, M Street, and Lake Avenue, and the proposed superimposed scale of the building that is being proposed. This image is taken from a drone, so it's an aerial view and captures mostly roofscape, but provides an illustrative sense of the proposed development, which highlights mostly the residential since it's taken from the south, starting at 3 levels on First Avenue South and stepping up to 5 levels towards the museum at the Art Walk. The museum, this is a site plan that is similar to the one we saw previously, but we're highlighting a few points here, and we're going to zoom into the Art Walk a little bit more here. The museum ground level is activates the Lake Avenue to the north with cafe and retail lining Lake Avenue. You can see that on the upper right-hand corner of this plan. We're proposing a gift shop and cafe in that location. The Art Walk links the development east-west to the neighborhood and to the proposed K Street parking garage. The landscaping with shaded trees is proposed along all frontages of the building to further reinforce walkability within the area. Go to the next slide. This is a zoomed in layout of the Art Walk, showing the nature of this space, which is really a space between 2 buildings, the museum to the north and the residential development to the south. The residential building is mindfully planned with a community art space, amenity and lobby spaces, so that Art Walk is reinforced with appropriate ground level activation. The museum to the north is required to have loading, of course, for the function of the building, as well as street level parking, which we have incorporated into this plan. What you're seeing here is a graphic which articulates a paving pattern and texture to show variation and celebrate the idea of a pedestrian level environment that is activated by two buildings. And we've designed the facades in such a way so that this doesn't feel like the back of a building, but rather a more private, intimate community space that links to the neighborhood. The existing parking to the surrounding buildings remains. That we haven't identified that in this drawing, but it's the white to the upper left. So access to those parking spaces and through access of this alley is still very much drivable and accessible. Again, the design intent and treatment is to celebrate and reinforce pedestrian level activity, embracing urban design and urban planning measures that reinforce that. Go to the next slide. This is a 3D visual of the art walk. Again, it's a space between the two buildings. The buildings here are muted in order to highlight the art walk feature. To the right is the museum building, which we'll talk a little bit more in renderings ahead. And to the left is the residential building with arched colonnades lining the art walk and turning the corner on South M Street. This also, just before we go to the next, I forgot to mention that we're not highlighting or rendering light poles, but this will also incorporate, in addition to the paving and the landscaping, there will be light poles that are in line with the City of Lake Worth Beach standards. We'd like to share a little bit more about each building, starting primarily with the museum. As mentioned, the museum is programmed in such a way that the ground level is activated with a cafe and museum gift shop. The entry is on the corner of South M Street and Lake Avenue. This entrance is on axis with a grand staircase within the lobby of the building. The staircase wraps around a hung curated feature art piece to enhance the arrival as well as the streetscape experience, inclusive of a potential Chihuly gallery featuring a display proposed for this level. Just quickly touching on the other levels of the building, as we move up the building, there will be a collection of exhibits, visible storage. There's a chandelier display and ceramic displays, of course, an auditorium, and some administrative office to support the operation of the building. There is a terrace on the third floor in the setback surrounding the building with an overlook to the art walk to the south. Next slide. And a section that illustrates the setback and the higher ground level, the feature stair that wraps around a curated art piece, and then some double height spaces to reinforce the grandeur of the museum experience when you step off from the main street. This is a rendering, and we're going to follow with a few renderings of the museum. This shows the view from the corner of Lake Avenue and South M Street. The ground level is activated by the cafe and retail glass. The Wiener Museum signage is displayed over a horizontal canopy, which defines the entrance. And the exhibit spaces above are clad in a custom facade that is dynamic and celebrates the artistic artifacts of the iconic museum. The next slide shows an elevation view from Lake Avenue. The composition of the building is glass at the ground level, cast material that evokes movement, texture, and shadow that changes with daylight and potentially night lighting at the mid-level. It has an opening which features a framed display of one or multiple artifacts in the museum, and the upper levels have vertical openings with horizontal metal fins that hover around the recessed terrace. The next slide indicates the reality of the same image really, but just with the trees that are proposed, as there will be trees lining all the developments, shaded specified for shading to encourage walkability. But you can see here the ground level, there's some street level seating off the cafe, and to the left is where you turn the corner to the art walk, which we'll see in the preceding slide. This is the view from the art walk, from the western portion of it, looking to the east. The rear of the museum has an equally dynamic facade to reinforce the activation of the art walk and give it a strong sense of place. As mentioned, the art walk will remain a drivable alley for access to loading and parking. In this view, the loading dock is in the foreground to the left and screened with the gate and mural wall to further integrate with the art walk. This view is taken from South M Street, looking down the art walk, the space between the two buildings. To the right is the museum with a facade that speaks and hovers over the art walk, and the residential building is to the left. The space between, of course, is landscaped with trees and greenery, and the paving is, as mentioned, designed to encourage pedestrian flow. This is an axon showing the museum, identifying the surrounding infrastructure and how it integrates with the existing mobility of the area, which supports the integration of a building of this manner. The bus lanes for visitors, drop-off pickup areas to reduce lane blockage, enhance pedestrian experience with shaded trees and activated ground level space. We go to the next section, we'll touch on the residential component, starting with the below grade parking. The ramp is off of South M Street to the right, and the subterranean space, excuse me, spaces yield 117 parking spaces below grade. If you go to the next slide, this shows the residential ground floor plan. The blue areas to the north are amenity and lobby, inclusive of the community art space, which synergizes with the museum. The yellow are residential units with artist lofts along South L Street. There's an internal private courtyard. Access to the underground parking garage is off of South M Street to the right. Go to the next sheet. These are the high level this is an axon of the residential building, identifying the surrounding infrastructure similar to the previous diagram, just identifying the green spaces that act as buffers from adjacent off-street parking, wider sidewalks that colonnade lobby entrances to accommodate entry, and touching on its integration with the existing mobility plan that's in place and reinforcing that within Lake Worth Beach. That summarizes where we are in the design process at this point. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with you tonight.
Thank you very much, Anna. Picking up from there, I wanted to just take the opportunity to share where we are and all of the elements that we have been discussing over the last 7 months in terms of the development deal. To say the least, this partnership is not a traditional development agreement. As we discussed very openly in February and several times since, this project only works if we take responsibility for aspects of the project collectively as a partnership and compromise through this process. To date, we have talked about many things, and we're taking into consideration the community and the Commission's desire and the realities of developing a feasible and financial project that also supports the museum in perpetuity. So that being said, there's several key elements that were considered and that are laid across the documents, the master documents that will be before both the City Commission and the CRA board in the next coming weeks. First of all is the transfer of property and the process for which that property would be transferred to the developer. The development program, what are the contents, quality, and character of that program? And what are the primary standards for which the city and CRA expect us to operate in that process? The development requirements, as well as what would be WMOTA's financial requirements in this process and what would be the city and the CRA's financial requirements. And finally, there are long-term commitments associated with a project of this nature that will continue on long past the completion of construction. And so our documents consider those elements as well. When you hear me talk about master documents, there really is a group of legal documents that we have talked about that will be ultimately going before the City Commission and the CRA over the next upcoming months and years. But the two primary agreements for which we will be talking about most presently in October would be the purchase and sale agreement, which is which would be between the CRA and WMOTA, as the CRA is the landowner for the L&M sites, as well as the development agreement, which is the tripart agreement between the CRA, the city, and WMOTA. And the development agreement is the beefiest document that deals with every element associated with the development: timeline, construction, financial commitments, expectations, process. In that agreement will call for additional legal agreements that will govern things that will be done through this process. For example, the K Street construction agreement, the contributing structure relocation agreement, long-term parking agreement, and the long-term maintenance agreement for the Arts Alley. All of those things would be required, and they are necessary because in this process, it's a staggered, it has a staggered time frame. So the purchase and sale agreement burns off. The development agreement then picks up our relationship from the point in which we close all the way through till we deliver the property. And all of these other agreements have specific point in time purposes that require us to have separate agreements for that. So I want to take a moment to talk about the community benefits. We've talked a lot about the development, but one thing that I must say in this process is that the WMOTA team, along with the city and the CRA staff, we've worked very hard to go above and beyond and add value to the community while seeking to develop this process. And we are not the typical investor, nor is this a typical opportunity. And there's many examples of this development that sets us apart from anything else that the CRA and or the city has done before. There are spaces in this seemingly private development that are fully public, dedicated in perpetuity, and have open access to every resident of Lake Worth Beach. And I think that's something that's very special and should not be missed as we have these conversations in the context in which we talk about them. So I want to give just a few examples. So for the properties that are currently facing Lake and Lucerne in the city's existing land development code, that code allows for 3-story building heights as right, with 5 stories, with up to 5 stories with the provision of open space. Our particular development is not only providing open space, we're providing an arts alley dedicated to the public in perpetuity, indoor community out spaces, art spaces, and all of the other things that we will continue to talk about. With respect to parking, one of the things that became clear through this process is that we would be unable to support parking on our site without a parking structure of some sort on the parcel. We went through numerous models with parking structures on the L&M site and clearly understood that began to run afoul of the community's goal to preserve the character and the scale in this development. And because of that, we instead are constructing an underground garage, even though the addition has put a burden on the development because of the complexity and cost. But we found a way, in partnership with the city and the CRA, to make the community happy, conceal the parking, and keep the scale of the building. I think that is something that we are collectively as a team and a partnership somewhat proud of in terms of the problem solving. In addition, WMOTA is contributing to the public garage and will provide enough parking for not just the museum guests, but also the surrounding businesses and guests to the downtown today and in the future. In terms of arts and culture access, every long-term study that I can think about or have read in Lake Worth Beach from the city and or the CRA talk about the importance of the arts and expanding access for the community and encouraging art in the downtown as a vehicle for increased destination tourism. WMODA not only will have, of course, the museum as a destination, as one of the only fine art museums in this country, but we'll also have dedicated community art space where we offer classes to children and seniors. We're going to have amazing partnerships that we're already forging with your existing arts community, the galleries, the art walks, and then not to mention the immeasurable opportunities that we have to partner with the Gulfstream Hotel to create increased visitor spending and destination weekend opportunities here in Lake Worth Beach. And finally, one of the things that we struggled with in this process, but we are happy that we were able to put forward a develop that was inclusive of that, is affordable housing. If you recall, the city's own downtown master plan suggested no affordable housing on this site. And when we first started this project, we were very upfront about the fact that we thought that it had to be market rate housing only because, quite frankly, we were concerned that we would be able to deliver this project on this site with the scale that is required and still be able to support the operations of the museum long term. But we found a way to include affordable units as it became clear through our time with the community that they were passionate, that the community was passionate about it and wanted to seek as many opportunities in the downtown to have mixed income residences as possible. In addition to the affordable units that we're providing, we are also preserving the homes that were on the site, moving them just 2 blocks away and keeping them together for visual impact, keeping the historic character of the area. More importantly, those homes will also provide additional affordable housing units in the downtown. All of these elements, we believe, work together to show that this will not be a walled-off private development, but instead a value-added redevelopment project that will become a large part and integral to the fabric of Lake Worth for a very long time. So from a high level, the critical path for this development is shown above, and it's best kind of expressed in a 5-step or 5-phase process. The first is the inspection period phase, and then the government approval phase. I want to take a moment and pause there for just a second and express this because we've heard some confusion about this. This development shall be required to go through every review and approval process that's currently required under the code. This process that we are discussing today is about the deal itself and the potential for it going forward and how we will govern that deal. But we are still required to meet every standard and go through every board that's required for a development of this scale. So as you can see, the timeline provides for ample time for us to go through the government approval phase, just like any other developer would, regardless of the fact that we're doing this P3 partnership. And we also have our financing and closing phase, our 2-year construction phase, and then completion. Next steps. So we have 4 fairly significant public hearings that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. October 7th will be our joint City Commission CRA board workshop, in which we will have the full presentation, full project presentation, all deal points, the development agreement, PSA, etc. On October 8th, the Community Redevelopment Agency will meet, and at which time we intend to bring forward the purchase and sale and development agreements for consideration. Then we move on to the City Commission meeting on October 15th, for which there will be a first reading of a public-private partnership ordinance and or resolution. I'm unsure about that format, and at which time the development agreement will be considered. And then our final hearing, second reading of the public-private partnership ordinance on October 29th. In closing, I wanted to share that we remain open and available for any questions that the community has. We encourage the community to hop onto our website, log on and sign up for our newsletters. We have a dedicated email for questions, and in the upcoming weeks, we'll be posting those frequently asked questions onto our website. We want to have good information out there and have the community make a decision based on not subjective information or social media fodder, but what we know is actual fact for people to be able to make a decision. And that concludes our presentation, and myself and the team is available at your discretion for questions.
With the presentation, we do not have public comment at this time. There will be several opportunities for the public to speak to the project and speak to us as well as to what your concerns are. But if you have any questions, please contact W. Moda. Members of the board, do you have any questions for Renee at this time?
We're gonna hear a little bit about the expectations in financing and what kind of resources and financial assistance from the city and the CRA this project will require.
Yes, I'm sorry. That question is directed at me, right, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, we will. The CRA workshop will be going through all of that information, as that's integral to the purchase and sale agreement and development agreements that this body will consider. So we are still working through some of the finer points. The documents are still being discussed back and forth and finalized, but by the 7th, we'll have an opportunity for you to see all of the financial deal points and consider the impact of those deal points as you deliberate about whether you want to move forward with this process.
We don't have any additional comments. We're going to move on to the update on Sky Garden, which is the next presentation.
I think Ms. Fairfax has a question.
I just had a few observations, and this may not be the right time, but just was taking notes. One thing that has been coming up is about some concern about underground parking. I, for one, think underground parking is a wonderful solution, especially on this very congested site. I do think that the design team has done, this whole process has been textbook perfect. The way I've watched you come every month, and you've met your goals, your deadlines, and you've brought everybody along. I have a big question about when the public is going to have the ability to make comments. I know that on Facebook, I'm hearing things like, oh, how silly it is to have underground parking. Now, the public wants to, maybe that forum is directly to you on your website, where the public can get answers and have questions. I mean, I have some questions about, for instance, what the facade material is. We talked about its effects, but I'm not sure exactly what it's made of. So maybe Anna can mention that. I think people are worried that it's going to have kind of a space age effect in the middle of, what is really an historic town. I think the renderings look beautiful, but I'm not sure if they're, realistic enough for us to really know what we're getting. So the height, scale, and mass, I have no problem with. I think it all looks great. And then you're saying all the right things. Affordable housing, we never thought we'd get. And also the, do we have a pool in there? Sorry, this is like a whole catch thing, but is there a pool in your program?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
There's a pool in the courtyard.
It came up, some years ago when I was working on it, that the public said, don't give a pool, because we're trying to get the public pool built up on the hill by the ocean. And the comments were, this is just going to be like a private club, and those people will never go to the or support the public pool. I'm giving you a little heads up about the way community feels about these things. So anyway, that's.
If I could, with respect to the public comment period, this is David Tolsis, the board attorney. Before the board approves any item, there will be the ability to make public comment at the meeting. Certainly, there are plenty of opportunities for the public to submit questions and concerns to the WMODA staff through the website. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yeah, he's handled what I was going to say. We encourage any questions to come through the website, but we have 4 public meetings coming up for which public hearing would be included.
What happens though is you get, like we had today, you get public comment before the presentation. So I'm not sure how these things go. You feel as a little cheated as part of the public if you're like, okay, you have to make a comment at the beginning of the meeting before you even see what is presented. So I'm curious about that.
And I'll just say that the board is charged with the responsibility of listening to the public and then deciding what's in the best interest of the CRA with respect to considering and approving an agreement. So, you know, the avenues for communication, I know, are always open between the board members and the public. And I know WMODA and the CRA has done a tremendous job in providing public access so that if people have questions or comments, they can be submitted and considered before the version of the agreement is actually considered by the board.
Great. Thank you.
So, Daniel, I think your question is on the minds of a lot of people, and what is the financials look like, and just to put it on the table, there will be financial commitments that have to be made, right, from the city and the CRA to make it work. Because if you think about redevelopment, just a normal redevelopment, the whole place would be filled with revenue generating, assets.
Right.
And fortunately, we're not doing an RFP for that type of development here. We're gonna get a potential free museum. So then you take a lot of space out for like high-end, the big revenue generating, and then building a parking garage associated with it as well. WMODA is contributing to the parking garage, but not the whole thing. And so there's an opportunity to meet the parking study needs that the city has at the same time with the contribution from WMODA. So there is a lot of financial stuff that has to happen to make it work. So I think, I just didn't want you to think that there wasn't, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If I learned anything from participating in, when the bond thing came up for affordable housing, is that nothing can be built without government subsidies. Essentially, there's almost very few things that can be built. But it's important that the public knows what it is they're getting and how much they're contributing towards that project.
Oh, absolutely.
The real figures, real numbers, so they can really judge, on the merits of the project and the investment.
Yeah, agreed.
Have a comment, and I think it's one of the things that, you'll see on the social media. I'm sure everybody's been reading the same thing. Concerns about what the construction, not costs, financial costs, but like social costs will be in terms of pollution, congestion, and just the impact for people, residents who are living there. And it's going to take a good couple of years for this whole development construction to go through. So just was wondering if it's not, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but any information, Renee, you could give about that and how some of this distress on the public could be mitigated over, and who's really responsible for that. Some of the other comments were about, like, the city does really such a less than perfect job already of dealing with some of the other issues in terms of roads and sidewalks, potholes and the like, bike lanes, pedestrian lanes. And so what is, typically, how would you see that some of these concerns could be mitigated? Thank you.
Sure. I think we have to be realistic from the fact that it's going to be a construction site. And no matter what you build in this location in such a tight downtown, there will be disruption. So that is just a matter of fact, no matter what we would develop here, whether we would develop 2 buildings or we develop 20 buildings in this location. But that all comes down to the proper management, proper site management. It comes down to communication. It comes down to being organized, meeting with the building department, and you have codes that are already exist that deal with times of day for which you can construct something, and just the way in which you communicate with the public about what can be expected on any given day in terms of the construction process. It's construction management. So what I can say about the team that would prospectively be before you is that they build buildings in the middle of New York City. Doesn't get any tighter than that, doesn't get any harder than that. And they do it well. And so this team, I think, is uniquely qualified in this environment to understand how to build in an urban city with neighbors right next door, and in some cases on top of, beside of, with no rights of way to speak for. We understand that. And I think, I would hope, Member Kerner, that we have some credit in the bank when it comes to our ability to effectively communicate with the public. You know, what you've seen from us over the last 7 months is not something that would stop should we be successful in moving forward with this process going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the things that I'd like the public to have is a little patience. We know that this is a difficult process. This is a public-private partnership. This is something that's very different than what the city is used to doing. Most of the time, a developer comes in and he tells you what he's going to do, and if he goes along with the state of Florida, he can do almost anything he wants to do. So we've asked these people to come in and share their ideas with us, and we've been there every step of the way. We've addressed your concerns. We've opened our doors to you to say, come to the CRA, come to the meetings every month and tell us what you'd like to see. Go to WMODA, tell them what you would like to see. And so our next 2 meetings or several meetings that are coming ahead, you will have a chance to see more things in detail. You'll also have a chance to voice your comment. We're not doing anything in secrecy, and every time that we make a vote, you can sit and see it. We're not going to vote in private. We're not going to do anything that you would not be considered. But in the end, we would like to make the best project for the city of Lake Worth Beach. And it may not please everybody, but at least we can reach a consensus that we're moving forward. We cannot continue to have the site look like it looks now. Something is going to go there. And the other alternatives that may be available may not be something that you want. So please work with us to tell us what you want, how you want to see it, what you want done. It's still in development. This isn't a final decision. So please come to our next several meetings and share your comments. Please contact WMODA, contact the CRA. Some of you have, and we are addressing your comments. So conversations do not hurt anybody. It's when you start making all these comments to say, this is what we're doing and we're not listening to you, that does hurt. So we are listening, and please join with us in this project. Thank you. And
If I could just say one thing, and probably it's gonna be like, I'll get some boos and it's gonna be politically incorrect, but I'm gonna say it anyway. And I appreciate everybody, what you have to say, and obviously we're listening, but maybe I think I'm just being a little bit sensitive to this whole thing and building on what you're saying. Madam Chair, it's like if people are raising questions, if people are writing things on social media, if we have questions, it may not be to everybody's liking. I just feel this kind of pressure when I see, it reminds me a little bit of the Gulf Stream Now. When I see these WMODA Now signs, it's just like, we understand that there's the desire for this. We understand that there's pressure on all sides, but I don't think it really helps. And if I see 25 people carrying WMODA signs, WMODA Now signs, it just feels like this is a little bit too soon in the game to be doing that. We're all part of this process. We're all as committed to it as you are. So out of respect, I just want to say that. Thank you.
I think that the people who are holding the WMODA signs feel like they're on the opposite end of the people who are complaining. So on both sides, they want to be at the table. You are welcome to be at the table by attending the meeting and getting up and giving your public comment. Please understand that that's where you do it. It's not social media, and I'm not saying that you can't say anything that you want. And that one thing we do with this CRA is we make sure that we listen to everybody. And if you notice, our board does not always agree, but our board always gives their comments. And the things that they feel strongly about, I respect that. And so all I want us to do is proceed with respect and move to a consensus. Our board will do that, and we're hoping that the community will join us. If we're finished with the board's questions, I'd like to move on to the update for 15 North East Street project. Who's playing Sky Garden?
So hello, my name is Juan Conte, and I'm at 826.
I don't think your mic's on.
Your mic's not on.
Oh,
Oh, is it?
hello. Closer to percent. Juan Conte, 826 South Federal Highway, Lake Worth, Florida. I'm a developer and architect for the 15 North East Street project. And this is my final hurrah with you guys. So we promised for 4 months. It is now 4 months that we've done it. I'm waiting for one part on the fire, which is backflow, which is coming next week. And instead of a big fat presentation, we'd like you to walk through the project before your next meeting next month. And we'll have some people there and you'll see the office working and things set up. So thank you so much for all your help. And I think you guys have done a huge thing for us and the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you that may not be aware, this gentleman came to us several months ago and he wanted some assistance and he wanted some clarification of his project. What we requested that he come to us each month and give us status because he had such a short time frame. And so every month he's been coming to us, telling us, this is where I am and I plan to be finished on time. So I applaud you that you did finish on time and that we're anxious to see it.
Thank you so much. I'll invite all of you and Chris will make the arrangements. I'm sure he's gonna love that part.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. So much.
We're now on our presentation for Path to College. Come on up.
Hi, everybody. How we doing? I'm Christine Sylvain, CEO and founder of Path to College. I live over in College Park. And I'm just going to take you through a little bit about us because I don't know if everybody knows what we do and who we are, and then update you on 1213 Lake Avenue, Madeline's Place. So we're Path to College. We fearlessly clear the path for the most overlooked and underestimated students to get into the best colleges with best scholarships. We work here in Lake Worth. Do I have the clicker? I do. We work here in Lake Worth, and we have a cohort 3-year model program that helps students who come from low-income backgrounds who have challenges at home to do leadership development and get into great schools. And our understanding is that there is incredible talent and brilliance stuck in the muck of the myriad of ills that come with living in poverty. And so this is something that this area really struggles with our working class families, many from different countries, and we are all about helping those students succeed and pull the families forward. So this was our graduating class from last year, 100% to 4-year schools, 61% top tier. So this is a very special program. I will also say that we do about 1,000 students in community outreach programs, SAT prep, FAFSA advising, college prep, bar none. We're really excited about where we've come from. This organization was founded on my dining room table in College Park. So it's a Lake Worth Beach grassroots organization. And we've really just grown and done incredible things. I won't go too deeply into it, but great success, happy alumni, still on the path, happy students, awards, a lot of accreditation, good stuff, and the Catapult project. And so Catapult is what we're calling 1213 Lake Avenue. And we are working on getting it launched. So a little bit about us. A lot of people say, okay, Catholic College is college prep. We do more than tactical college prep. We create great candidates. So I love to just put that out there. so everybody can really understand what we do, why we're here today. And we're launching the Catapult Center to launch futures. So if you look at this young man here, you may have met him. He lives in town. Manuel is an exceptional student. He came here at a young age from Central America, didn't speak English, didn't speak Spanish. So, I've been on this break. Thank you, Acatico. And had to learn the language. He helped his parents pick vegetables and fruits in the fields in our state. And like Manuel, his path to college was very unclear. And I'm proud to say that Manuel is an exceptional, driven student. He's got something inside of him. And through our work, we've helped him get into Duke University with a Fulbright scholarship. So these are the kids that live in Lake Worth. And I'm gonna say, that's that program that we run, but we have to know that we have exceptional, courageous educators working at our schools in Lake Worth Beach, dealing with very hard issues, and they need help outside of school. They need a place to send kids outside of school. So we have some stats here that, we're very proud of our graduation rate at Lake Worth High School. There's some other stats that are really worrisome, very worrisome, right? We found from our partners at Palm Beach County Library System that we have this high graduation rate, but only 32.5% are graduating with a post-secondary plan. So anything after high school, any further learning, it is wasted talent in Lake Worth Beach. So Catapult and you all smart people decided Path to College should be the program that comes in and does a different type of redevelopment in Lake Worth, which is a long-term development of our greatest resource, our youth. And so it was a year ago that we came here and presented and got our leasing agreement approved. And we've been working hard to get through some processes with the city, and also just getting our funding. We have state funding coming in. We're going for county funding next week, which is why I'm here. I need you guys to approve our new design. But we're very close to being ready to start construction and to be open August 2025. And I'm very happy to share that we just got a pledge for $1 million endowment for this center in Lake Worth Beach, which means all overhead will be covered forever, right? So really, really exciting stuff. And I did want to just let you all know what we plan to do there. So, we've got this flagship program. It's boutique. We do exceptional work with these kids, but what the Catapult Center will allow us to do is expand our offerings and have doors open every afternoon for students to come in, sit down with a caring adult who is an expert on college and career prep, who will do a career aptitude test with them and give them an individualized plan for their path to college, so that they can come back for career panels, for financial aid workshops, for tutoring, and really just provide those after school supports to ensure that this amazing talent, these beautiful kids who live in our community, can do well and pull their families forward. And so we expect that we will serve 3,000 to 5,000 students within 2 to 3 years of opening in Lake Worth Beach and beyond. And we're very excited about that. This is our design. So this has been a lot of work in development. I know we've been very quiet. People are like, why aren't you open? Why aren't you open? We're not open yet because we're moving slow in order to move fast and be open for good. So I'll just take you through it briefly because I'm going to ask you today to make a motion and approve this design. So wonderful Joan can write us a letter of support for our request from the county for funding. But you come in on the bottom floor, we're gonna have a security checkpoint. We'll have a lobby area, which is a place where teenagers will not be shooed away and they can just be. It doesn't really exist for teenagers, and it's very, very important. So we'll have sectional couches there. They can meet with their mentors who we set them up with. They'll have those little desk things that come up. They can do their work. And if you go through, we're going to put study pods in so that they can have soundproof time just to get work done. And if you keep coming through, we'll have our general assembly area, smart boards, an area where we can really serve a lot of people, parents included, to help just provide the supports that are needed and the knowledge that is so exclusive and expensive when it comes to getting into college. One of the things that we've been really working on is ensuring that the building design is up to snuff so that we can increase the occupancy. We want to make sure that the building is being put to full usage and want to make sure that we are moving it from current occupancy, which is at 46 to 200. So it's 5,000 square feet, why not, right? But in order to do that, we need to put in some more bathrooms. So you'll see there's 2 more bathrooms and a water closet there. And then upstairs, you'll see another 2 bathrooms up top. And that classroom on the second floor, level 2, will be our tech classroom, where we'll do everything from tutoring, tech certifications, and anything involving a computer that you can think about. We'll have some program offices where our staff can meet with families and students and make those plans. Conference room, and then storage, of course, and an elevator. So you may recall the building is actually exempt from having an elevator because of its historic status. But after hemming and hawing and looking at the different options to serve potentially disabled students who might come to us, our donors decided elevator was the way to go. We don't want to turn one student away because they have a disability, and we already have a really wonderful foundation who has pledged to pay for the elevator. So this is the plan, and the back area, I have to thank the team at CRA for putting plants in and making it nice back there, because it's going to be a picnic area where kids can decompress from all the hard work that they have to do, because our kids work double time compared to your run-of-the-mill kids. So that's the design. I already kind of went over this, but just really want to highlight that it's walking distance to schools and to other community organizations who we're highly collaborative with and are really looking forward to working together to create a pipeline of supports for students in Lakewood Beach from pre-K all the way up into college. And that's it. I'm excited about this project as a resident, as someone who came here in 2001 as a teenager. It's just beautiful to be able to be spearheading this project here with your support and really with the vision of this board in honor of Madeline and Kendra. So thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Nope, just admiration.
Let's do it.
One of the things that struck me is 75% of Lakewood High students live in poverty. We cannot conceive what that really means. It's not just poverty. I have students whose parents don't speak English. They become the parent. They handle all the bills for their parents. They're making adult decisions, and some of them are not really teenagers. So when we talk about that 75%, if we can just reach some of them, it's a win. But I know that they're reaching many of them because they're working really hard. And I want to thank Joan and staff, for their hard work on getting Path to College a home in Lakewood, which is unusual. That's not something that we do. When you think of CRA, you think of developers coming in trying to build an apartment building. Joan and her staff thought outside the box and said, this is something that's really going to matter. And I applaud them for doing that, because that took a lot of guts.
And
Thank
certainly
you.
it increases the earning potential of those students. So
Yes.
it's all about making sure the kids who grow up here can stay here long term, really. But it's a long-term approach, and it's really the answer, isn't it? Yeah. And thank you for highlighting our student struggles, because we truly believe that makes them a cut above the rest. That those skills are transferable and can be applied to. So thank you so much.
We are finished with our presentations. Can we have a move for the minutes from August 13th, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 13th.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's discuss the consent agenda. Staff, did you want to say anything regarding the consent agenda? Okay, do we have a motion, and we will need to take these 2 items separately, please?
So separately, I'll move to approve consent agenda item A, fiscal year 24-25 accounting services amendment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Could we do the second
Aye.
item B?
I'll move to approve consent agenda item B, purchase of 114 North East Street.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One name.
Oh, I'm sorry. One minute. No. That's quick. I didn't see you, I'm sorry. Okay.
Was that just a no for item 7B?
Discussing the fiscal year 25 market approved sum for Sun Sentinel. The staff want to discuss that with us.
Good evening, Emily, Lakeshore CRA. Before you, we have a request to continue our partnership with the Sun Sentinel Media Group. At our priorities meeting last June, it was very obvious that marketing is one of the board's top priorities. So we met with Sun Sentinel, and before you, we have some ideas for this year's upcoming marketing of the downtown projects and any other events that might be happening here in Lake Worth Beach. Some of these strategies will include direct email marketing, paid social ads, printed display ads, digital display ads, and inserts in the City and Shore magazine. We're also going to be shifting some of the funding to be doing a lot of those ads in Spanish this year. So looking for a motion if you'd like to approve in the amount of $15,750 with Sun Sentinel Media Group for fiscal year 25. Do you have any questions?
Can you just have one question, Emily, if you don't mind? I know that, the Latino population is much larger than the Haitian population, but I just was wondering if we could have that, that has been Haitian Creole as well for the direct email marketing.
Sure.
That'd be great, thanks.
Could we have a motion in a second and then we'll have a discussion? I have a motion.
I'll move to approve, $15,750. Expenses to be deducted from the fiscal year 25 budget promotional activities line item and authorize staff to sign the agreement.
Second it.
Now we can have a discussion. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding this issue?
About the Hispanic outreach, from what I saw, it just involves email, is that correct?
And what was the end of that?
That these Hispanic outreach is mostly just emails?
No, we're going to be doing some printed display ads also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I also have just concerns or just more questions about the emails and how they like the impact that they'll have. Because I don't know if it's just people who read the Sun Sentinel and identify in some way or another along the way that they're Hispanic. I don't know if we're paying extra for people who most likely speak English very well and consume material in English on a day-to-day basis. And we're paying more to email them in Spanish. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, we'll be using the Sun Sentinel's list of readership as well with our list, and then whatever they promote for us, we will also turn around and put up on our social media.
We have a list of people that we email, like an emailing list,
Yes.
or like up from the website.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know, is it like 3,205 a page? Is it like the Hispanic outreach 3,750 e-blast, 250,000 target subscribers email sent specifically to a list of Hispanic households and Spanish-speaking Lake Worth residents. Email costs 1,250 per email. 4 emails. Do we have that large of a list of? Do we, like, as the CRA, we have a list of Hispanics that we know of in the city that is that large? Or is it in combination with them? Because I find that hard to believe, and I'm wondering if we're not just better off just emailing in English and maybe investing some marketing in radio, some other type of media that we know that Hispanic or primarily Spanish speaking individuals, because any person can identify as Hispanic if they think they speak, they speak Spanish, or if they come from, second, third generation, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, I don't know if we're paying premium for some emails that could just be in English with a bulk amount of emails. Am I understanding you right? Because I know there's a further up, right? There's more emails, email blasts. I don't know if we can just expand that. And maybe have a different approach to Hispanic outreach.
Sure, we can. Yeah, absolutely. I can ask them to see exactly what it is that they can do and how we can target, but we will definitely be using their list as well, and I believe their reach is the entire Tri-County area. So it's in hopes not only to let our community know what's happening, but also maybe to bring in some new visitors.
And also, if they could just clarify, is it like more expensive to email in Spanish? Is that what I'm understanding? Is that way it's set apart, or is it just, it could have been,
No, I just wanted to break it up so that you could see that there is an investment, because we've talked about doing things both in Creole and Spanish, so we wanted to focus on that and show that we're actually gonna give it a try and see how it goes.
for sure. I know emails are great, I just don't know how impactful they'll be. So I don't know, I would think that other opportunities for reaching the community would be better.
Do you have any ideas?
Mostly, the only thing that really comes to mind is radio. I mean,
Okay.
Facebook ads, invest more money pushing Facebook. I've never done it personally. I've done campaigns and stuff like that. You can do Facebook marketing. WhatsApp is very,
Is there a station specifically?
Radio Fiesta.
Okay,
It's the first one that comes to mind. And I think La Ley, they're local. I mean, local and county, they have their offices in Palm Springs.
can you email me that? I remember Radio Fiesta, but the other one,
La Ley,
I don't want to misspell it.
no worries. I can send you that stuff.
Thank you, Emily, for doing this. And when we look at all the outreach that the CRA is trying to make, our budget is very small. To give you $15,000 and say that, work a miracle. But we understand, that you're limited by constraints, and we'll give you this money. And I'm quite sure that we will have a few months into this process to look at and decide what's working and what we can change and how we can change it. Staff has been very flexible. When we went to them and said it's something that we're concerned about, they would try and make any new avenues of success for the project. So I'm sure that we'll do that as well. And Daniel, we listened to you regarding the Hispanic outreach, which is why we spent all of this time.
I really hope
going
I'm
over
like
that.
the token, the authority to speak on the Hispanic community. I'm not a marketing person or anything like that. I've worked in my personal life trying to reach the Spanish speaking community or non-English speaking communities. And I feel like email is probably not the best way to go.
Okay. And to be clear, this isn't the only marketing we're doing. This is just what we're doing with Sun Sentinel. Once we get rolling into the fiscal year, I'll come back and share with you other places that we advertise. We are actually meeting with a radio station, but not Hispanic. So we'll bring like more of a detailed report probably December.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I am looking for a motion to adopt, approve. We do it. I'm sorry, we did. Now then we can vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is my fourth meeting today, so it's been long. So I'm sorry. But we have to move on to something that's really important, is our business grants for fiscal year 25, discuss and approve changes.
All right, good evening again, Mr. Bros, Lakewood CRA. We'll talk about the commercial grant programs again, okay? First, though, I got a presentation, gonna try to run through it as quick as possible, but if you have any questions, please stop me. Okay? So as you guys know, we have 4 main existing CRA commercial grant programs. We've been offering these programs for over 20 years now. Current programs offer grants as low or from $5,000 or less than that, always $1,000 to over $100,000. All revenue, all the grant funds come from our city and tax, or city and county tip revenue. All the grants that are applied for require an agreement, and everything's considered public record. They are highly competitive. They're reviewed by staff first, and usually the board of commissioners yourself afterwards. We receive a lot of applications every year. They do not guarantee funding. They're not entitlement programs. They are competitive grant programs. The three main, the tenant, the facade, and the public infrastructure program can only be applied for by the property owner currently to receive funding. We also have our signage grant programs, which can be applied for by the tenant or the property owner as well. All our guidelines for the programs are approved by you guys every year, just like last year, and we can do them tonight as well. Going to go through just a couple highlighted projects that we did over the past couple of years that you guys are aware of, maybe not aware of, and have had your hands in helping to approve. These are before and after pictures. 120 South Dixie Highway received a facade grant a few years ago. The 1200 block of North Dixie Highway, which is Tom Auction House. These are dilapidated or vacant buildings, a couple of buildings that they combined together, renovating completely. They received a couple of grants from us, and now we're operating as the auction house. 16 South Dixie, this was a vacant building for a long time. Now it currently has 2 businesses operating in it. The Herb Jones building was the old funeral home. Now it's the Herb Jones yearbook and high school yearbook photography place. 604 Lake Avenue is Rum Shack, Kana, all the above. It was just a shell. They received facade and interior grants. Still looking good. It's empty right now, but it is a fine looking building inside and out. The Dave Matthews Scratch Kitchen received interior improvement grant, signage grants. It was a vacant building, as you can see, and now it's a fully operating kitchen. Dave Matthews Brewery, many years ago, they received the interior grants as well from us. The Beauty Suites at 605 Lake Avenue received interior improvement and signage grants from us. The one, or this is the Laura project at 117 Lake Avenue, received a public infrastructure grant to build their mixed use building. And the one received one as well. The 1100 block of North Dixie Highway, these were a bunch, there's at least 4 or 5 buildings that we assisted. They were all vacant for a long time, where they were just really warehouse, storage. 4 or 5 buildings we assisted, and now we attracted Florida Window and Door. It's their corporate headquarters. They take up both sides of Dixie Highway. They have over 200 employees, and we're pretty proud of it. We drive by it every day and really don't take much notice, but there are a lot of employees there, and that business has really grown. If you watch TV or on internet, still advertising they can do recently. No business has really grown. We're still trying to grow more, but bring some more buildings on a block. An oldie is 211 North Federal Highway. This was just a worn out apartment complex, and Cedars Electrical Mechanical came in, bought the building, interior and exterior facade grants, facade grant and interior grants as well. And he's got his business downstairs, and he's got some apartments upstairs. The Rock Irish Pub, this restaurant sat empty forever on Lake Avenue. They received a facade grant from us a few years ago, and that assisted with them opening up the building. Dunkin' Donuts, they received a facade grant as well a few years ago. That was a vacant, empty lot at 106 Dixie. The Bamboo Room, they received facade grants as well to help with changing out the windows, the awnings, painting, patching, stucco, banding work as well. So our current programs, as I said, are facade, the interior improvement, public infrastructure, and the signage grant program. For this year, we're trying to get these programs pretty much all the same as we did last year. Unless wants to make any changes to the programs. Just a real quick run through the facade grant and the interior improvement grant. The maximum request is $50,000 per parcel. Minimum request is $10,000. You must be the property owner to apply. We're gonna hopefully start accepting applications next month, and property owners have until the 31st of May to enter their applications into us. After they get approved by the board, they have 1 year to complete the project unless they request an extension. It's the interior program as well. Signage grant program is you can apply for up to $5,000 if it's a business or property owner. For funding to help half the cost of signage at your business that we have to approve, that staff will approve. If they approve it, if we do approve it, the grant gets completed, the project is completed, we pay the signage company directly. No funds go to the business or the property owner. Public infrastructure grants, larger grants up to $200,000 for mixed use projects. For large projects that require a lot of public infrastructure work, utility relocation, upgrades, street work, sidewalks, drainage, etc. And that applied for up to $200,000 for your single project. I'm not going to go through all that. I hit the full points, which is property and business must be located in the CRA district. Not fund nonprofit organizations, schools, or religious institutions, government property. They're not allowed to apply for eligible to apply for the grants. We don't fund rents, mortgages, taxes, purchasing, clothing costs, operations, and maintenance, insurance fees, and soft costs such as architectural fees or utilities. Last year, if you guys remember, we made a change to the program at your request to allow maximum 2 grants per year per owner or entity for 1 year. Just for an application review, we try to focus on historic properties, focus on arts-related businesses, anything that's going to create job growth. We don't fund our rents and mortgage utilities, and we kind of prefer projects that are already ready to go immediately, and not just sit and wait and not fund investors really fund letting them move. Again, these are our forward commercial programs right now. Interior signage. In your staff report, we did make the recommendation for the upcoming year to add bullet point that any new applications that come in from facade or tenant improvement need to have a tenant that's with a guaranteed lease that's going to come in immediately after the work is done or currently all work has been completed. In the past, we recommended that, but it wasn't a requirement. So that is our newest requirement that the lease has to be included, unless you're the owner operator of the building. Also in your staff report, there's a list of all the properties we've awarded since 2016, 2017 to present. We've awarded over $1.6 million in grant funds, and there's a map also highlighting all the locations of those grants as well. That is all. If you have any questions, recommendations, we are planning to revise the applications this month, and hopefully they're available sometime in October.
For the lease requirement, is there a lease term? Is it like a year, 2 years, or is it undefined?
It's undefined right now. What we've been seeing in the past with some of the property owners that have lots of property, less commercial property, they're usually signing for at least 3 years anyways. They're required 3-year leases. I think they're only less than that. Less than 3 years.
What was the budget amount that we agreed on for these programs? Was it 400,000?
This year, I think it's 300 for new fiscal year.
Yeah, I think that's
415. 415,000.
It's somewhere between 3 and 4. I know we had some carryovers from last year, so that might be why we think it's a little higher.
I'm not really sure of the question, given that I know there was a discussion we had in the previous meeting about approvals for folks who are submitting multiple grants, and it seems like they're also family members of some of the developers who are also submitting proposals, and I know we were discussing the way to kind of reduce that, and I know it was something you raised actually, Madam Chair, so maybe if you can go into a little bit more description about it, because I don't see that integrated into these changes. Thanks.
When we voted on our budget for this year, one of the caveats that I had was that we would bring this item back before us and discuss it. Because I find that certain companies come before us every year, and usually they're the companies that are asking for the higher amounts. And while we want to remain competitive, while we are not showing favoritism, I want to make sure that we extend the opportunity to more people rather than the same people every year. And when we changed it last year to say a person cannot get more than 2 grants from us in a year, that was a change we made last year, correct?
Right.
Maybe we want to discuss that maybe they could only get 1 grant a year, or maybe they could get a grant every other year. But if someone comes to me and says, I want $100,000, they're taking 1/4 of my budget. What I would love to have is have smaller grants that people would be able to have, and we would advertise those smaller grants to people who may only need 15,000, may only need 20,000. And yes, I'm sure that we have those grants available. I don't know how good a job we do is advertising it to say, let's go along the Dixie corridor and make sure that those people are included. So my concern is having more people at the table and having more people having an opportunity to participate in these grants. And so that was the reason why I wanted us to discuss it. Joan, go ahead.
Just so you know, besides obviously it being on Facebook and on our website, last year we mailed postcards to every single commercial property in Spanish and English in the city, letting them know about the grants. And we did get a lot more people coming in. It's just not a lot of people actually want to go through the process.
And have we looked at streamlining the process so that smaller grants would be able to do it? Obviously, someone who's asking you for $100 million have all the things in place to make the grant a success.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Chris spends an inordinate amount of time meeting with people, probably way more than I think anybody should, in order to get people past that goal line. You have to remember that no matter what we're doing, we have to have an agreement. We have to have the attorneys involved. We have to have you guys involved. We need all the paperwork, and we need some kind of hold on that in case, you know, they go out of business and we need our money back. So doing something that's going to have a real impact on it for, let's say, $50,000 versus something for $2,000 really doesn't make a lot of sense. And we have to have things that are permanent. So somebody can't come to us and say, I want a new refrigerator, or I want new windows because I haven't maintained the ones that I have, or, you know, something else. It has to be something that's really going to create value and create jobs in the neighborhood. And that's why we've kind of teetered towards more larger projects as it is. But we do have a number of small ones that come in every once in a while. But like I said, we still need a deed restriction on the property, and a lot of times the owners don't want to do that.
I think I just am more concerned with making the opportunity available. Whoever chooses to come to us and put in an application, that's one thing. But if we do a better job of making the opportunities known and saying that maybe someone who's asking for $100,000 can come just once a year. You know, if they ask for 2 projects in a year, and they ask for $100,000, that's half the budget. You know, we have to be realistic as to what we can afford. I understand you're going to get a better bang for your buck. I am not understanding what this project does. What I'm saying is, let's try and expand the opportunities. And I know that we're going to be doing more things with marketing. You know, maybe we can market this better.
We're going to do a brochure.
Yeah, because I'd like to go to a business and say, hey, have you thought of this? Let me give you this. Please contact the CRA. You know, and they have something in their hand to work with. You know, it's one thing if we send them a postcard, you know, but at least if we provide a brochure that outlines all of the requirements, they can take it to someone else and have a discussion. So I am not, and I don't want you to think that I don't think that you all do a good job with this program. I think you do an excellent job with it. I'm just trying to tweak it a little bit so that we can have more people having a bite of the apple.
I like the every other year idea. I think that's something the board should consider to try to get more people to apply and.
An easy fix would also be, the minimum request is $10,000. An easy fix would be, we could lower that minimum request to $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, $8,000, whatever. And also not have those small grants, if it's under $15,000 or $14,000 come to the board, which is a burden to some people to come and, you know, beg, or whatever you want to say, ask the board for their grant to be awarded. Those are easy tweaks we can do as well. But I'll say that the last grant that was given out in June for the one that's going to be the alterations was a lot of work. It's only $10,000, and we have not received their grant agreement back, which means that we're probably not going to go through with it. So, which is unfortunate.
The grant agreement.
So,
What was the last part you said, Chris? Like, how did that end?
well, it hasn't ended because it hasn't started. They haven't signed their paperwork.
They haven't done the paperwork yet.
Yeah, and if I could, it's David,
Would you like to
it's
spend
everybody.
For applying last year, did we spend all our money last year on this, or did we have
Oh,
enough?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We had to pull from some other places, but some of those are rolling over and some of them, like, some of the grants are not, that one's not going through more than likely. And there's some small signage grants that we award, but they don't go through either because the company or business doesn't follow through.
Right. So I do know the active participants, right, and we see them a couple of times a year. If we switch the policy to limit the repetitive nature of those, is that gonna limit opportunity? I mean, are there opportunities we'll miss that we might not want to miss, or, I mean, how am I supposed to think about that?
You know, we look at what's coming through the pipeline, we can see based on what's coming through the city, you know, there's some good ones that are coming through that wouldn't fall under that, own a lot of property. Burden as well. So I want to fund those, I want to help those people and want to fund those as much as possible. And we know the ones that we're talking about that we want to put restrictions on, and let's keep the restrictions there.
That are currently existing or up them?
No, well, unless you want to do the every 2 years or every other year, something like that, yeah, but the reason those people apply is because they can.
Right. No,
That's wrong. So if they can't, then they won't.
I mean, I'm not sympathetic to them or anything, but they can, and then they deliver, then our city looks better.
Sure.
Right, so, I mean, yeah. So there's, you know. I kind of like, I mean, we did it last year too, that the cap is 50,000, right?
For each, for the facade and the.
For the facade, yeah,
Correct.
not the infrastructure. And do we have the discretion to say no?
Oh, yeah, you have discretion, you have discretion to make conditions as well,
Okay.
when it comes and say, instead of doing this, do that instead, or make little changes to your building, the rendering, and as well as to the funding as well.
Right. I mean, I kind of like the way it is, honestly, and then if we have the discretion to say no, then take that. But I know we don't often say no to Joan.
Chris, you
Can
said
you hear
no
me?
to, not me.
And it's not.
Can you hear me?
Joan and Chris that I'm saying no to. And I think that they know that.
Yes.
What I'm looking at is saying no to our repeat people who come every year and ask for $100,000. You know, so, and this is not that those projects will not be done. Their funding source would just be different. It is not that they do not have the money to do this project. They choose to use our program. And they have the right to use our program. I am not saying that they don't. But what I'm saying is, if I get money to the same people every year at $100,000 a clip, what am I doing for other people? And that's all. I'm just trying to spread the wealth. So I'm not against it. I think we're doing a great job. I just want to say, can we expand it? Can we look at what our options are? That's why we're having this discussion. It's really just options because we have to put things in place because the application cycle will start in October, right?
October, yeah, more likely after the Lamona meetings.
Hi, it's David. Can you hear me?
Here, an economy of scale, could we offer like grant workshops that like smaller grants are a mandatory attendance component that they have to come in, they have to learn what the requirements are?
We've done that in the past, where you had one, at the beginning of the year. And you had to show up and sign in and all that, but then it takes away from people that are just coming into the city, so that, I mean, that, something like that would have.
Quarterly or something?
Yeah.
I mean, I just, when I think about a $5,000 grant to our chair's point, I like the idea of small grants, but y'all are a small staff. And I know the time it takes to get these folks ushered through to our eventual discretionary approval.
And maybe we need to look at not having them to have to come before us. I trust Chris and the board, I mean, the staff to say, hey, this is a $15,000 grant. If it's under $25,000, I feel comfortable saying that they can make that decision without coming before us. Is it a requirement that they come before us?
My spending limit is $15,000. So anything above that, we would have to come back to the board unless you change the bylaws.
Can we change the bylaws to maybe 25,000? Would that be more workable for you?
I'm gonna let David go in on that one.
Hi, it's David. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, super. So two things. One, you're the public stewards of the CRA's money. So whether you're giving away, not giving away, whether you're granting $500 or $100,000, you still have a responsibility to make sure that the money is being used properly, consistent with CRA statute, as well as your mission. So that's one thing. So Chris does a great job, and whether somebody wants $500 grant or $100,000 grant, he's got to do the same work, and same documents have to be prepared. You do have the right to say no. The decision to say no, can't be discriminatory in nature, but can certainly be based on the fact that maybe it doesn't give the bang for the buck, doesn't meet the design standards of the city. If you have a concern about a certain project, staff and myself be happy to talk to you prior to a meeting to help answer any questions that you might have regarding that. Your guidelines for these programs are what you established kind of like tonight with this agenda item. So if there's a different process you'd like to follow, if there's certain standards you'd like to have, certain time limitations, whether you choose to adopt it tonight or you want to bring it back for your next meeting, you can do that. But, I will say that there are companies that have received grants, several years in a row, but it may be a different LLC that's controlled by the same individual. So it does make it difficult to put that limitation in there because the fact people are, savvy business people, and they will create single purpose LLCs for certain properties. And so, how far you're going to dig down to see how an LLC is set up and make that determination as to whether or not somebody should or should not be entitled to grants several years in a row for different properties. I mean, it's the same property, that's easy, but different property locations owned by different legal entities may be a little more difficult to control. And with that, once again, I'm happy to answer any questions, and it's always great seeing everybody. Sorry I couldn't make it there tonight.
And if you have any comments or questions?
I just want to say something, David, I appreciate what you're saying, because I know just in my own case, maybe I pester Chris a little bit because I call with questions about the proposals, and no kidding aside, and this is not a complaint, it's like, what Chris says is, well, Donna, you can't really say that because it would seem discriminatory. Basically, all these, if everybody checks all the boxes, cross the i's, dot the t's, it's hard to make, it's hard to say no. We can only say, well, instead of 50, how about this? Then it gets to be like a negotiation on amount. That's a little bit difficult.
Well, I think
there's pressure when people come and make these like nice presentations and other people come to speak on their behalf. then sometimes we have other people in the community who says this is a really great idea, so all in all, it gets to be like, we kind of go like, yes.
Well, I mean, you're ultimately governed by, is it going to eliminate slum and blight? Is it going to help increase the property tax base in the area? And if you feel personally, based upon the information you have, that it's not going to meet what you believe is a CRA's mission, you're certainly free to say that at a public meeting, and try and convince your fellow board members to go your way. If there are issues you see before a meeting, certainly you can talk to Chris, Joan, or Emily and see if there's any way you can come to a resolution of that issue before the meeting so that your issues or concerns are satisfied.
Thank you.
Chairman. So, circling back, so you had said that the company that, comes twice a year, the project would get done anyway, whether we provided the funds or not. I haven't been here as long as you, so you understand it a lot better than I do. So I would be comfortable switching it to once a year.
And even with the once a year, the people who are asking for $100,000, they have all their ducks in a row. Everything that they bring before us is going to be on point. It is not a question of whether or not they've done their due diligence. It's just a question of how much money we want to fund for that particular type of project, for that particular type of applicant. We can go to once a year, that's a part of the compromise, but more importantly, I'd like us to do something for smaller grants, and try and move in that direction as well. I don't know if we would set aside a portion of the budget, for smaller grants, but I think that conversation needs to be had. We need to look at more than just people who are coming for 50 or $100. So can we work on something that would help those people as well?
Well, I think Chris said it before when he said we can lower the minimum amount. Right now it's 10,000 for facade and tenant improvement. We can lower it down to 5. Or another number that you guys feel comfortable with.
Okay. And then we'll do some marketing for
that
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, that's.
Based on your experience, you have people who come in and say, I just don't want a grant that big. And I'm looking for a $5,000 or $7,500 or a $3,000 grant. Are there people that aren't looking for 10?
Not to make physical improvements. They need it for operations, salaries, rents, utilities, big one. That's what they're looking for. Those are the business owners. And all our grants, except the site grant program, have to have a deed tied back to it. So that's what makes it so difficult. That's our biggest hurdle as far as getting these grants to small business or things that size business. That just needs a little bit of help to get through. And usually those businesses, if they're asking for operations expenses, they're probably not going to make it very long. So, do we really want to go through all the work to fund them if they might not be around in the year next year or so? So, no, to answer your question, no, for physical improvements, not really. Unless it's like a code issue, which we don't fund improvements to take care of code issues.
Unless there are exceptions. We make an exception.
Rare exceptions, yep.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I mean, one thing comes to mind is like maybe, there are some businesses that apparently are successful, but maybe they're lacking in a nice bathroom or something like that. And maybe they could be persuaded. I know some good businesses in town that maybe are neglecting some of their, bathrooms, maybe some of the kitchen. And I think everybody would benefit from it. If they're not gonna do it on their own, initiative, maybe they could be persuaded for the good of the community and the people who frequent those businesses. That's something that comes to mind for a small brand like that. So, we could do something like that. That'd be cool.
We can look at all applications and make a determination, but I don't think we want to get away from that the owner has to be the applicant.
Madam Chair, so should we work on some language now? If we're done with discussion or motion? Maybe should we have David involved as well?
We have the option of making a decision tonight. We have the option of asking Chris to give us the changes that we discussed or what he thinks would be workable and come back before us. We discussed many things, many options. So at this point, it becomes what we're willing to compromise, reach a consensus, but it doesn't necessarily have to be tonight. Wasn't trying to force his hand. I realize that the new year is coming up, but I certainly would be willing to say that you've listened to what we said, you've made these changes, and you have something for us to vote on at our next meeting. Is that a compromise that we can have?
How does that work with your timing?
Just remember, next meeting is promoted.
Right.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
so I've been
So it won't be that one.
taking notes.
Yeah, so, I mean, what I have is lower minimum amount from 10,000 to 5,000 and limit to no more than one of each grant per year.
And so to me, you could make a motion to approve what has been recommended, with the change to each entity applicant is limited to one grant per year, and the lower limit amounts are reduced to 5,000.
Right.
And can we add that we will do marketing set aside money for marketing as part of that?
Yeah, we'll continue with marketing and also, I think smaller grants do not have to come for the board because that's time consuming for.
Yeah, it's already in the bylaws.
As long as it's under 15.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've always brought them before, even just because.
don't worry about that.
So can we fashion
We have to run this by David Tulsis.
David, does this work?
So with respect to authorizing administrative approval of grants less than how much?
The bylaw says I can't approve anything more than $15,000, David.
Okay, so then it would be grants of $14,000 or
$15,000
$15,000 and under could be approved administratively. So you would include that as part of the motion to approve this. My question is the $5,000 lower limit is for the interior improvement grant and the commercial facade grant?
Correct.
Okay. So you have one entity, one grant per year, lower limit of 5,000 for the interior improvement and commercial facade grants, and authorize the executive director to approve grants of up to $15,000 without board approval.
And the marketing component.
And marketing as well.
What he said.
Is that a motion?
Do we make a motion that says everything that
Yeah,
he
so I
said?
can try it. So this is true. I make a motion that we approve the business grants policy as presented to the board with the following changes. Entities are now limited to one grant per year. The minimum for the interior improvement grants and facade grants is reduced to $5,000. We will engage in a marketing campaign for these smaller businesses. And the executive director is authorized to approve grants at $15,000 or less. So moved.
I need a second.
Second?
All those in favor?
Let's do the discussion.
Public comment, discussion. Come on, we're gonna discuss it.
Aye.
But. Would anyone like to make a public comment regarding this issue? Okay, would anyone like to have more discussion?
Can I just ask Joan on the administrative approvals, could you just give us like a 2-minute summary, as you make those approvals and?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll have Chris do it.
You can deputize, that's what I might.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. It passed unanimously. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have the executive director's report.
Correct. This past Friday, we had the opening of the Community Locals Only exhibit at Hatch. We have two talks coming up that Emily touched on before. One is Thursday, September 12th at 6 o'clock. We're having something that's called Cottage Talk featuring Wes Blackman. And then Thursday, September 19th at 6 o'clock, we have another art talk that that features Peter Meyerhofer. So please put those dates, September 12th, September 19th, 6 o'clock on your calendars. It's just a reminder that the WMOTA City Commission joint meeting will be on October 7th at 6 p.m. at the casino complex. My understanding is that the city will be taking care of broadcasting it live so people can watch from home as well. In your packet, there are two things. There's the annual report and there's also the annual financial report audits from the city auditor. We didn't have any significant findings. The only finding we had is that the CAFR is done late, but we don't have any control over that because it's done by the city. But we passed nicely, thank goodness. Also, I have saved the dates for some Habitat home dedications. I have 304 North C, which is the Mason family, and that's taking place September 25th at 9 a.m. And that is a veteran who's getting a home. We have 302 North C, which is the Carter family, and that is taking place 10/17 at 9 a.m. And just to give you a little update, for our purchases, we've been doing our best. Although I know a lot of times it seems like we're buying single family homes. But believe me that when I tell you that we're buying ones that are in close proximity to each other so we can do more multifamily. And that is the case in 114 North E. It's very close to 115 North F, which right now, put those two together, we can do up to 7 units. I have an update on 1306 First Avenue, 610 North E, 417 South D, and 625. All of those are in project underwriting with the county to get county housing bond money on for construction. I believe all of those will be duplexes, which is the most that's allowed in that particular area. And we also have two other properties that are, we have closings scheduled later this month. That's 304 South F. That one I think we can do 4 units on, and 314 South D, which we can do 2 units on. So we're keeping David very, very busy with closings, and I appreciate all his help with that. And that is all I have. Thank you.
It's time for board member comments. So then you'll be like, we can.
So it was a great meeting today, and really it's what is striking me is I remember when I first started on the CRA, it was mostly just redevelopment, getting packaging parcels together, and that's still very important. I'm glad we did it. But something feels different now with Path to College, with Pomona, with all the affordable housing that we're putting together. It really feels like there's a real public purpose that's being served here, and to really enhance Lake Worth, right? And Joan, that's on you. And so I'm glad you're still.
I just bring stuff to you.
Thank you for doing that. But that, looking for those opportunities, making it happen, and not letting it get away, those are all great. And I just really appreciate what you're doing for us as we sit up here. So that's all. Thank you.
Can do it without my staff.
They're pretty good too.
Yeah, I just like to note in our Path to College brochure that she handed us tonight, they're looking for volunteers for speed interviews. I did it a couple of years ago. It was a blast. So if anybody's got the time and inclination, there's a QR code you can register.
They interviewed me.
You interview them very quickly. It's a ball. So.
One of the comments about at the college, I'm actually helping to organize an event with 2 of the students from Path to College who'll be speaking on. I've organized a Youth Change Makers Conference, and so 2 of the students will be speaking from here and, yeah, it's gonna be really exciting. Yeah, thanks.
When is that done?
September 21st.
Where?
Give
me all your details.
Yeah, I guess we've been putting stuff on Facebook, but.
Facebook.
I can send it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
The only comment that I have is I attended a meeting last night and there was a lady there who was wheelchair bound, an older lady. She was probably in her 60s. And I was telling them about circuit and W-MODA and all that. And she says, excuse me, ma'am, she said, circuit is not ADA compliant. She can't use circuit because she's wheelchair bound. And so I told her that I would bring that back to us and that we are looking at changes for the next year. And could that be something that we could consider?
We already have we already have an ADA van that is available at any time. It's just when you're putting in your information on the app, you just have to request it, that's all.
Okay, I have her name and phone number.
Okay, yeah, if you could send it.
Contact her, it's because she's has a motorized wheelchair. And so she said she would love to use it because she's paying $3 each way for Palm Tran. And so she said if she could do it for $1 because she's literally going to the same place and it's usually within the city. You know, so she's doing her grocery shopping and all of that. So I do have her name and phone number. If we could contact her, let her know.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.